You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, politics is our game, and we will be doing politics this evening because we have as our guest the co-founder and the executive editor of Real Clear Politics. So you can't get more politics than that. We could almost have Tom Bevan here because he wrote the opening of the show, essentially. That's Tom Bevan. He is the co-founder. He is the executive editor of Real Clear Politics. He got out of Princeton and went to work for an ad agency. Did that for about a decade, and then he did what, maybe he enjoyed that. We never really found that out as we were talking at the beginning of the show. But it's obvious he enjoys what he's doing now because he does Real Clear Politics. That is www.realclearpolitics.com. They have become famous. Some would say infamous, but I would say famous. When you see him, certainly Fox, the Fox News channel seems to like that polling a lot. I'm sure others do as well, but I don't watch, I don't know if MSNBC hardball goes with you or goes with others. But a lot of people who followed politics for a long time always had this trouble when you try to keep in your mind the various polls. You would have maybe head-to-head for different states, presidential races, presidential primaries, and you might have 15 polls, and you're wondering how do you summarize that? And so this was this genius idea. Was it Tom Bevan's idea or was it your co-founder?
It was John's idea actually in the beginning.
And who's John?
John McIntyre is the co-founder of Real Clear Politics. He's a friend of mine. We actually graduated Princeton together but didn't know each other at school. We met after here in Chicago through some mutual friends.
His idea was what?
Well, to sort of, aggregate all of the polling to provide sort of what we have now, the Real Clear Politics average, which takes into account, polls that are in the field during a contemporaneous period of time and produces an average of those. So
people know if you go to Real Clear Politics and you see a bunch of polls, is Obama ahead relative to McCain nationally, how much? Pretty much, what is it, 5.9, 6 points? That's
just under 6, that's right.
Just under 6.
Yeah.
And so everybody knows there could be 15 polls. You could have the LA Times or Newsweek saying 12, 15 points. Right. You could have others saying 2 or 3. The average is 5.9.
Right. I mean, that's part of it, is that there's been a proliferation of polling both at the national and at the state level. And I think in the 2004 election, leading up to Election Day, I think there were like 7 or 8 overnight tracking polls. In addition to other polling that was taking place, and so and each side sort of touts their poll and tries to sort of use that as a marker and say, well, our guy's up 20 points, but there's also another poll out there that shows your guy may be only up 2 points, and so we think the Real Clear Politics average provides sort of the best, broadest, most accurate indicator of where the race is at any given time based on the public polling data that's available.
And the other thing you do, for people who try to keep up in politics, you're always looking for things to read. If you want to be balanced, you might have to read the National Review, you might have to read the New Republic. So look for things on the left, on the right, in the center.
One of the things that we've done and worked very hard on over time with the site is the web is very polarized, and you will not find, as you said, you go to National Review, you will not find a liberal opinion there. You go to a place like The Nation, you won't find a conservative opinion there. But there are fascinating arguments from all sides, and what we try and do is bring them together in one place every morning and sort of collate the best of the best, and we try not only to provide a variety of opinion from across the ideological spectrum, but also of subject matter. Obviously, the horse race is taking up a lot of people's attention right now, but we work very hard to make sure that economic issues are addressed, education, all sorts of different issues are available to people.
So if somebody, hypothetically speaking, watching this program, and they were a true independent, and they were trying to decide between Barack Obama and John McCain, and they came to you and they said, forget the polling for a minute, let's get at substance. You know John McCain, you know Barack Obama, you've seen both those folks, you've been at press conferences with those folks, you've read them, you've read about them. Give us the top 2 or 3 things that distinguish Barack Obama from John McCain or vice versa, and help that independent make a decision on things that are important for this country between those 2 candidates.
Well, I would say keeping it focused on the site for a second. I mean, that's one of the things that we do is sort of bring all of this information together and be a clearinghouse for people who are interested in hearing what the arguments are from the left or the right on issue X. And also, we're collating every day television commercials from both campaigns, transcripts of every speech that's being given, of any, whether it's policy related or whatever. And all of that stuff is there. So you can come to the site And the nice thing about the site really is that you can come there and it can serve as a cheat sheet for you. You can scan it real quickly and see, okay, this is what was written in the major papers around the country today, and you can spend 5 minutes there, or you can spend 5 hours sort of drilling down, reading the transcripts, going through, digging through the poll data. I mean, we have links to all of that stuff. So that's sort of, you know, how we construct the site and what we want it to be for people. As far as my, you know, take on the two candidates and
you do take, but you do a blog. You've got opinions.
That's right, absolutely.
You're not. What are you, a Republican or a Democrat?
I think I'm a registered Republican here, but you know.
What does that mean when you say you think you're a registered Republican in Illinois?
In Illinois, that's right.
Well, how are you registered? Because they don't really register, do you?
I think I did.
No,
so.
well, you just, because you take a ballot.
Right.
And then people can tell whether you're Republican or not, because that's public. You took a Republican ballot, Democratic ballot. But you're not restricted. You could walk in on a primary and take a Democratic ballot.
That's right.
So you're not really registered. In
Well,
what sense are you registered?
I would say, actually,
people know the parties, the Mutual Republican Organization, the Evanston Republican Organization.
I'm not one of those who say, well, I don't tell people who I voted for or whatever.
You let it know.
Yeah, although I did not vote in the last because I was traveling during the primary.
You didn't vote in what? Oh, in this primary in 2008.
In the 2004 primary. So.
In 2008 primary, you didn't vote.
In the 2008. Yeah.
2008, but in 2004 you voted for Bush.
I believe I did. Yeah.
2000 you voted for Bush.
I think I did.
96 you voted for Dole.
I don't know. Actually, I'm sorry. In 2000, I didn't vote because we actually moved from.
You hadn't registered in time to vote?
Well, I had ironically enough, moved from Florida and didn't get our absentee ballot, so could have been one of the votes that mattered in Florida.
So 96 you voted for Dole?
I don't know.
92 you voted for George Herbert Walker Bush?
I voted for Clinton in 92.
Clinton. So you have voted. You have gone back and forth a bit.
Absolutely.
You're a Republican, but sometimes you'll vote for.
Oh, I usually vote for the person. I mean, I'm not a straight ticket person by any stretch of the imagination.
We'll get back to the other stuff, but this is interesting. Why did you vote for Bill Clinton over George Herbert Walker Bush in 1992?
You know, it's a while back. You know, I was just out of school. I came to Chicago. I saw him speak down at the Daily Center. I was, you know, I think I bought into the whole idea of him being a new Democrat, and so.
Do you think it was because of the bias and background at the universities? You were at Princeton, your co-founder was at Princeton. Everybody knows there's bias, especially at the elite universities. 91% of the faculty at those schools, whether it's Cornell or Harvard or Princeton or University of Chicago, thought to be Democrats, right? Thought to be.
Certainly, if you look at, I think there was
where the money's given, right?
Recently, right?
You would know
about this. In terms of looking at the
where the money goes,
looking at the donations. Absolutely, the overwhelming amount.
Do you think part of that, you come out of the milieu of college at Princeton, part of the reason why you voted for Clinton, because you were sort of in that Democratic
milieu? Maybe. I'm not sure. Okay. I mean, I wasn't really political in college. I mean, I was really, you know, got bit by the sort of politics bug. And again, I'm not really an ideologue. What I enjoy about politics is really the sport of it and observing.
You love the game.
I love the game. I love the game.
You get paid for this. You make money at Real Clear Politics, but you'd almost do it for nothing.
Well, when we started, I was doing it for nothing, and you know, getting up at 3:30 in the morning for the last 8 years, you must.
And love of the game.
You have to love what you do to be able to do that.
All right, so let's get back to the question. Yep. Independent, choosing between McCain and Obama. What are the 2 or 3 major issues? How does that choice get made?
Well,
by the independent.
Yeah, I think the independent. Well, certainly, if you look at the polling data, I mean, what's on the minds of most Americans? Iraq, national security, and the economy, and subsets of those. You know, war on terror, healthcare. And those are the major issues that are going to decide this election.
Iraq. How does an independent decide? Have you seen polling data, and how's it breaking between McCain and Obama?
Well, I mean, it's,
on the war.
It's interesting because clearly the public still is against the war, and they think the majority of the country thinks it was a mistake. Would like to see us start withdrawing troops. If you look at how each candidate is rated, who do you trust more to handle this issue? I think the last Washington Post poll was basically a tie, 46-46. So McCain is sort of, you know, despite the fact he is associated closely with the war in Iraq, the public doesn't like the war in Iraq. I think, you know, because of his own personal characteristics, the way that he has, I think, his background and all of that, he's not paying the price for that as much as you might expect another Republican candidate.
National security, same thing?
That's McCain's sort of, you know, wheelhouse, really. And so he's
ahead.
It's like one of the
with
only
independents.
That's right. It's one of the only 2 issues where the public votes him, you know, more likely to trust him as opposed to Obama.
So
but everything
gone
else
to the
is
war,
Obama.
gone national security. What was next?
Economy.
The economy.
Energy, healthcare. I mean,
who's got the edge there?
Obama does all the way.
How much Any numbers between, as far as independents, I'm rating that?
I don't know exactly. I can't off the top of my head.
But he's ahead, definitely ahead.
Definitely ahead on pretty much everything except for those two issues.
Is it because McCain made that sort of inane comment about he doesn't really know much about the economy? You have to say it's inane. We like John McCain, we like Barack Obama, but it's occasionally candidates for president make inane comments in the same way Tom and Jeff Berkowitz do, right?
Absolutely, and that was one of the ones
Jeff
that
Berkowitz
McCain,
maybe more so, but
I'm sure, wishes he never would have made. Tried to sort of pretend like he didn't make it.
But did that hurt him, or is it just that the economy is not doing well and you blame the party in power?
I think it's both of those. I mean, look, you know, in tough economic times, which clearly we are in right now, you know, you'd like to. It's not ideal for you to say that you don't know anything about one of the major issue of the day.
You also do, in addition to Real Clear Politics, your company does Real Clear Markets, right?
Correct.
So, and Real Clear Sports. We'll
That's
get to
right.
that in a minute. But Real Clear Markets, you said clearly we're not doing well. Is that true from the data? What's the unemployment rate now, roughly?
Well, it just went up to what, 5.5?
Something like that. It used
edging
to be
up towards
4% was full employment, 5% full employment. How bad is it with an unemployment rate of 5.5%?
Right.
I mean, they're not like droves of people walking the streets
No,
looking
but
for jobs.
look. I mean, you know, if you look at the unemployment data, just the numbers that came out last week, 6 straight months where we've shed jobs. The housing,
60,000 new unemployed people, is that what it was?
The housing market still remains tough. I mean, the Dow had its worst month since the Great Depression, I think. You know, just this past month.
I've heard that, but it doesn't seem right because it's. I mean, the loss in the Dow over the month, is that adjusted for inflation? Because it's still, what is it, about 11,500, something like that, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not terrible. I mean, my God.
No, but I mean, look, and part of this is, you know, the perception is whether it's by, you know, technical definition of a recession or not. I mean, clearly, with $4.50, you know, a gallon gas, people out there believe that. I mean, if you look at the polling data, are we headed in the right direction, wrong direction? Issues.
Doesn't
in the
that help
economy,
McCain? So McCain says at $4.50 he's for offshore drilling. At $2 he wasn't, because now the need is greater. Everybody wants a president or a presidential candidate to balance benefits and costs. If the price of gas is $1.50, you can be magnanimous when it comes to environment. At $4.50, you got to think about some offshore drilling. I mean, is that, number one, is that McCain's reasoning, and number two, is that attractive as you see the polling to people?
Certainly, I think you know, we've seen the polling on this move dramatically just in the last couple of months.
In favor of more offshore drilling.
In favor of exploiting domestic resources and
McCain says yes and Obama says no.
That's
so
right.
If independents are like the rest of the country, advantage McCain
I think McCain's
on the high gas prices.
Yes, potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, ironically. And this is one of the things. I mean, McCain was tagged by Obama and others as flip-flopping on this issue. But McCain's argument is, well, look, you know, when I was for the ban on offshore drilling, gas was $2 or $1.50. Right. Now it's $4.50. Things have changed, so I've changed my mind.
And partly a flip-flop is okay when people want you to change, number one. And two, it's okay when circumstances have changed. We want a president to adjust. We don't want an ideologue, right?
Clearly, I think that's one of the differentiations that McCain wants to make.
So, in sum, as you look at it, is McCain, at least with independents, is he doing okay? He's doing
okay. I mean, he's competitive with independents. I mean, his big problem, as we talked about before the show, is that, you know, Obama, there's an enthusiasm gap, and if you look at the number of people who identify themselves now as Democrats as opposed to those who identify themselves as Republicans, you know, there's more Democrats, self-identified Democrats out there right now, and they're very excited about Obama, and Democrats certainly are excited about the prospect of winning the White House.
Why are Republicans less enthusiastic about John McCain than Democrats are enthusiastic about Barack Obama?
I think, well, look, McCain Republicans sort of stumbled into I think the one person who could win this year despite all of the, you know, headwinds that he's facing. And part of that is, I mean, look, McCain's never been a favorite of the base of the party you know, and it's
Is it because he's a maverick, and or he doesn't toe the Republican line, or what is it? Why is he?
It's a couple things. I mean, it's two parts. One is it's certain issues that you know, the positions he's taken on certain issues, but it's also the way he's gone about taking those positions. He looks
for a fight.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean,
He kind of goes back to his old days.
He doesn't just oppose, or he doesn't just favor comprehensive immigration reform. He goes out. He's the guy who goes out and stands with Ted Kennedy and gives a press conference and basically, tells the base.
He seems like the kid in high school who would look for a fight.
He's just.
Is that right? I mean, is he? Remember, we know everybody went to high school. We all know those kids. There were kids who were always getting in scrapes because they looked for a fight. Does John McCain look for a fight, and does he particularly look for a fight within his own party?
I think sometimes he does.
Yeah.
And it's the way that he sort of goes about speaking to members of his own party on whether it's judges or whatnot. It's sort of he can often come off as
he formed that gang of 14 with judges, 14 senators that would try to keep people together, Democrats and Republicans, and avoid changing filibuster rules.
That's right.
But get some Republican judges through, but not all of them. Some of the conservatives didn't like that because they thought they were losing some appointees they'd wanted. He would say, but you're getting some.
That's right. And
but so judges, now of course he talks a big game about conservative judges. He opposed the Bush tax cuts in 01 and 03. Right. Now he favors them.
That's right.
Because now he says it would be a tax increase if you repealed them.
That's right.
Do you buy into that?
I think that's an issue where I think, again, that's one of the ones, if you're going to go against one of the orthodoxies of the Republican Party, I mean, cutting taxes is sort of the gold standard.
It's like the Bible.
Exactly.
I mean, Bob Novak said that God put Republicans on this earth to cut taxes, right?
Exactly.
So he really rubbed their noses in that one.
He did initially, and that was one of his biggest problems with the base in the primaries. That, and I think immigration, and of course
McCain, Kennedy, Gutierrez. And the Republicans, the base doesn't like it because they like the opportunity to be independent, to spend their money independently, and any constraint on that, how much they spend, where they spend, they, like the leftists, activists, that's something that left and right have in sync, right? That's why both, but didn't the left like campaign finance, so they were kind of torn.
Right.
But the right, is that why they were so upset with McCain-Feingold? They looked at McCain as limiting what they could do in terms of advocacy.
I mean, to the right, it's an abomination of the First Amendment.
It's
a free speech. I mean, that's all it is. And
coming out of Princeton, you might agree with him, right?
I think I happen to agree that is. I'm not in favor of campaign finance, and I do agree with people who think that the way to go about it is purely just to have it absolutely transparent.
Here's the problem McCain has. He was against the Bush tax cuts in 01 and 03. He was for McCain, Kennedy, Gutierrez on comprehensive immigration reform, which the Republican base doesn't like. He supported, obviously, McCain-Feingold. As he jokes, he said, poor Russ Feingold. He says a lot of people in Wisconsin thought that McCain was Russ Feingold's first name. Okay.
Right.
Gang of 14 on judges. The Republican activists aren't happy with that. He didn't support aggressive interrogation techniques, which the left calls torture. He wants to take action on global warming.
Quite a comprehensive list there.
His name was associated with John Kerry as a possible VP candidate. Right. He certainly spends a lot of time with Teddy Kennedy. I mean, so really, this is a major uphill battle for him to get. As we were saying, the polls show, 80% of the Republican Party support McCain, 80% of Democrats support Obama.
Roughly.
But there are many more Democrats than Republicans, so he loses if that stays that way, right?
Well,
he's got to get his support in the Republican Party higher than Obama.
He's losing
in the Democratic Party.
That's right. He's losing about, I think, 10, 11% are crossing over to vote for Obama. And Obama's losing, I think, a little bit more than that. And if you actually drill down into, and this is something that I wrote about recently and looked at, and this is the big question, right? These Hillary Clinton voters, these sort of white working class Democrats.
Where do they go?
Obama's support drops among those folks from sort of the generic pool of Democrats in the poll will be roughly 80%. When you talk to a Hillary Clinton voter, it drops to about 65%.
And is it just sour grapes and that'll change as the bitterness of the primary campaign heals, or is it something else?
I think it's, there'll probably be some of those folks who come home, but I think some of them won't. And some will be in the middle or waiting for Obama to sort of make that connection with them, make that effort, make that outreach, show them some respect. I mean, he certainly, I think, missed an opportunity by not going to the DLC, which was here in Chicago.
That was the Democratic Leadership Council. It's sort of the conservative centrist for the Democratic Party.
Right.
It was held in Chicago. We're taping this on July 6th. It was held June 28th to 30th, downtown Chicago. Right. Obama was in town.
Got his haircut, played hoops.
He just didn't go over there. Was that an intentional slap at those guys? What was the point
I
there?
don't know. I think it was a missed opportunity for him, and I think those
Maybe it was
people were
unintentional. Maybe he just prefers hoops to politics for a day.
I don't think the Obama folks are that.
So there was some reason he didn't want to be a part of that.
Yes.
Be a little too centrist. Wouldn't help him much.
Apparently. I mean, people are saying, well, look, it's a organization that's been historically closely tied to the Clintons, but I don't even necessarily buy that.
Well, we've been talking about the problems that McCain has in the Republican Party. Let's flip it over to Obama. What does he have, and what do you pick up on the polling that are Barack Obama's ideological problems? As we talk in the first week of July, people are saying Barack seems to be doing some flip-flops. He seems to be moving toward the center. Some speculate he figures he's got the left, he's got the daily costs. They'll give him some leeway. They know what he has to do to get elected as long as he comes back in January of 2009.
Yeah.
Am I being too cynical? Because as I
It's
say
not
to
possible
folks,
to be too cynical.
right, I try, politics are so cynical, and so if you analyze this, my saying is, I try to be as cynical as these folks, but I just can't keep up, right?
Well, I mean that is,
can't be too cynical.
that is, I think, Obama's big problem, big challenge, is that he has to, he's not seen as sort of your typical politician. I mean, people view him as, not through the sort of cynical lens, and
Not just another Paul.
And he risks that by some of these moves.
Like what?
Well, I think the left will give him a pass in certain areas, but I think they have sat up and taken notice on his move to the right on the FISA bill. He initially said back in January he was going to lead the filibuster against any bill that had this compromise on and granted immunity to the telecom companies. He has since said that this new compromise that they put out, which has an immunity clause in it, that he's fine with voting for that. And that created a big backlash.
Why the change? Does any of the press ask him and say, why the change, Senator Obama?
Yeah, I think he was asked at his press conference here in Chicago.
And what was his answer?
Well, he said that I think Michael Isikoff's question was, well, has the threat changed? He said no, but he said the bill had changed and there had been some language that had been moved around. I mean, it was sort of a,
So nobody followed up. We're talking about
No.
this press conference that was held in late June. I've written about it and took Morton Kondracki's lead, and basically we agreed and said it was a joke, right?
Right.
And it was a joke because, in our view, Kondracki's and Berkowitz,
That's right.
the media just asked a lot of softballs. You asked a question. I'm not saying everything was, but I think there were about 20 questions there.
Right.
And I would say 17 of them were probably softballs, right?
They were, and I wrote something about this saying it wasn't a joke because, and I agree with you, some of the questions were not, particularly tough or aggressive, but they were sort of, they were what was in the headlines at the time that everyone was sort of chattering about.
There was not a question about the war. There was not a question about gas prices. There was not a question about offshore drilling.
There was a question about gas prices.
Well,
and there was a question about.
Did he challenge him on offshore drilling?
I think there was a question on energy, but I don't know if
Yeah,
it was
energy.
challenged
No,
directly on
but
offshore
here's,
drilling.
Here's the thing about the media in Chicago. I think you have to agree with this. Media everywhere in the mainstream media. I'm not a professional journalist. I don't know that you are, okay? We're just guys who are interested in this stuff, right?
Correct.
I'm speaking
I
for myself.
I don't characterize myself as a professional journalist.
But it seems to me what you need to do in journalism, if you want to be fair, and you're fair and balanced.
Try to be.
Okay, I try to be tough but fair. And so if you want to do that, if you have a person who's at least left of center, slightly left of center, challenge that person from the right. If you have a person who's right of center, challenge that person from the left.
Right.
Obama's up there. The job of the media in Chicago, traveling media and Chicago media, is to challenge him from the right because Obama's definitely on the left. But they ain't doing that, right?
Well, look, you could challenge
Because half those guys, those guys, 90% of the media are on the left. They don't know how to ask a question challenging the left because they are the left. Would that be fair?
That might be a little
NBC,
unfair.
With the exception of the late Tim Russert, NBC, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, would you say they all slant left, of varying degrees?
You could make that argument, yeah. I mean,
people
certainly
right
like MSNBC this year has been
They
sort
don't
of,
slant left, they go far left.
well, they've been sort of, I
Right.
think.
And the only entity on the right, and PBS, throw them in there too with the left, the only media entity on the right is Fox, the Fox News Channel.
Right.
So, is that what we got? We got a left bias in the mainstream media that's, as Rupert Murdoch once said, big enough to drive a hole through in a different context.
Well, look, I mean, I think that, Obama did and has received a pass from the media, sort of by and large. And John Cass wrote about this. He was wondering when the sort of national media was going to sort of get focused on Chicago and the way politics operates here.
Let's focus right on that. Tony Resco, Reverend Wright, Father Flager, bitterness comment, a lot of that stuff. Reverend Wright was there through 2004 when Barack was running for the Senate. Where were the media? This stuff was said way before. They didn't notice.
Right.
What was on the website about the Trinity Church? They didn't notice.
Yeah.
So the Chicago media, really, I mean, they just blew it big time, right?
I would say, look, my answer to that is, the Clinton folks blew it, right? They didn't bring it up. You and I both blew it.
Well, somebody somebody got that out there.
There are a lot of
the Clintons did get some Resco stuff out there, okay? Or somebody got it to some media. The media eventually raised it.
But the right stuff, for example, or the William Ayers connection is another one that sort of, blossomed well into the primary season, where you would have expected that, A, the media would have brought those connections up first, and if they didn't, why didn't the Clinton folks bring what,
Okay.
Did they know about it? Did they not bring it up for particular
We're going to
reasons?
continue to speak as the credits roll. We've got to wind this up. We've got Tom Bevan back in the future, and he'll tell us some more about real clear markets and real clear sports, but sticking with real clear politics. You can find that on www.realclearpolitics.com. It's easy to find. You can find a great collection of articles. If you want to be fair, tough and fair, that's what we say here, you can get articles from the left, articles from the right, articles from the center. I think a pretty balanced view. Kidded Tom a little bit about being a Republican, but if he hadn't admitted it, I don't think I would know it from what I read there. And same thing, we don't endorse candidates here, but we do endorse the Real Clear Politics site as, I think, a great site for being balanced. And you also got media, you got video up there, right?
We aggregate, as I said, all of the ads from the candidates, all the speeches, clips from morning shows, late night, all that.
So get back to the polling on how much does Reverend Wright, how much does Father Flager, Tony Resco, the bitterness comment, how much does that hurt Barack Obama? How much is it hurting him right now in the polling?
I don't know exactly. It's very,
it's a factor.
I think, yeah, certainly. I think
in
it's
Appalachia,
a factor, and it's going to be one that's revisited before this thing is all
that
said
stuff
and done.
about not wearing a lapel pin, that video that shows him without his arm, without his hand over his heart when he's pledging allegiance. I think I've seen one video. I don't think it was doctored. That stuff hurts. We're going to see that. We're going to see Reverend Wright saying "Goddamn America, KKK," and it hurts as you go up that line in Appalachia, whether it's Kentucky or West Virginia. It is one reason why Hillary did so well, perhaps.
Yeah, but does he need those states? Does he need those? Does he need to win? That's why Obama's focused on places like Colorado, New Mexico, Nevada.
Could it hurt him in Nevada when that starts showing? Maybe they weren't pushing it out there.
Could. We'll see.
He's a guy who gave a speech about patriotism. McCain says, I don't question his patriotism, but are the American people hearing that stuff we've just been talking about? Do they question his patriotism?
I think some probably do, and I think that's why he spent all this money starting out with his for the love of country ad.
Who wins, Barack Obama or John McCain at the end of the day?
If the election were held today, Obama won.
How much does he win by? How many electoral votes?
I think it's actually going to be very, very close. I don't think he'll get over 3. He'll be right around 3.